made some headlines. Like people were talking about it, at least in my personal experience. How do like campaigns, do you guys do like damage control for sort of things like that? Or is it like?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think in the industry we would call it, like, crisis communications. And it doesn't just go for like politics, it goes for like, when Delta has whatever, situation going on with their planes, right? Like, it's just kind of corporate lingo. But yeah, of course, and I think to that point, like in politics, like I said, be nice to everyone, but also always watch what you say, right? I think Hillary said that in like a closed door setting, not knowing that she was being recorded. But like, how many instances have we seen of that, right? Like Mitt Romney got in trouble with that in 2012 when he said that 47% of Americans don't pay taxes. That was also a closed door setting. Obama got in trouble for it too. At one point, he didn't realize his mic was on, so he leaned over to the Russian prime minister and said, we can deal with we can reduce our number of nuclear weapons after the election when it looks better for you, right? So you just gotta know where you are, and who might be listening. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, but how come Trump gets a pass for basically all the stuff that he says, but like this one thing Hillary says that, people who vote for Trump are deplorable, like people focus on her so much for that. I don't know, I feel like there's like sort of double standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the difference between the two of them is that Hillary Clinton, you get the feeling that, okay, maybe she says some things publicly, says a different thing behind closed doors. But Donald Trump, I think there's very little doubt that the way he tweets, the way he talks in public, is the same way he talks to his family and friends, right? Like, he swears in public, he says these outrageous things. Like, the guy is just a fraud when he's, like, in the comfort of his own home, too. So, I think there's a kind of authenticity factor that people got behind, even though he was obviously, like, saying some very controversial things.
I want to add really quick what you said. You brought up a really great point, is that I don't think America is ready for a woman president yet. You look at Obama, we felt that Obama was able to get in, and I think that he really played a white person's game, in my opinion. And I think that we need, as Californians, to get out of our comfort zone and go visit another state. Go visit Kentucky, go visit Alabama, go visit South Dakota, and you'll see that California is just maybe 20 years ahead of the rest of the United States, or to get a different viewpoint. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in 2020.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to the idea that it's a related to your question, is that it's a certain volume of possible headline breakers of things that a person says, it just stops mattering. And if that is the case, how will that affect how do you foresee that impacting how campaigns struggle perception, candidates better?
Well, I think this might be tangential, really. I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly, but I think when it comes to communicating your message to the media, it's important to manage expectations, right? Because take the last Democratic debate, for instance, right? The headlines were all Kamala Harris breaks out, Joe Biden had a really tough time dealing with these racial issues, right? But the fact of the matter is he's still the front runner, he's still leading the polls. Kamala is maybe second, third, whatever. But once there's a narrative that you're the front runner and that place, that nomination, that election is yours to lose, and then you trip up, the media is just going to hemorrhage you for it. And likewise, if you're an underdog and you somehow have a breakout moment, that's going to get played up by the media and possibly elevate your numbers even higher. So you want to manage, if you're a press secretary on a campaign, for instance, you're going to have a lot of personal relationships with reporters and journalists. You're going to want to manage those expectations, so that anything unexpected doesn't make or break your campaign. Because a lot of how the media covers you is in terms of this is how he or she was doing yesterday, this is how he or she is doing today. And you want to make sure that's a positive story, not a negative. Yeah.
So you did even when you started out doing national campaigns or campaigns for people running for president and stuff, instead of focusing on local ones. So why do you decide to take that approach instead of campaigning for someone running for mayor or something?
Yeah. I mean, I think both, both are, whether you start at the local level, federal level, or somewhere in between, like, both are viable paths to, like, seeking if you're looking for a career in campaign work. Because fundamentally it's the same. It's about connecting with people, learning how to talk to them and persuade. And so it's a messaging challenge, right, ultimately. And so for me personally, I think because I wasn't sure if this was the path I wanted to go down, of course, like, the Obama campaign is like in shining lights, like, I can slap down my resume and it looks pretty good, right? So that's why I started there, but to your point, like, after the Obama campaign, I was doing municipal stuff. I was, knocking on doors for Sunnyvale's gun control law. Metro City was the first of its kind in the country. Actually, the same time to volunteer in the Obama campaign, I was also collecting signatures for Proposition 64, which would have abolished the death penalty in California. So that was like a state level measure, right? So honestly, my advice to you is, like, if you're interested, go, like, experience different levels of government, right? Because those are, you'll learn, like, what the city handles, what the state handles, what the federal government handles, and you'll kind of see what kind of issues you gravitate towards, and kind of what experience you're looking for. Yeah.
You kind of pursue a path of kind of public work, public service type of career, and that is totally not the path that a lot of the Asian Americans want their kids to be doctors, lawyers, and not making the huge bucks that the Google engineers and are pulling in. And do your parents give you pressure on that, or what do you say to the people who may say, hey, you know what, is that a good path for me?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, when I was in high school, I definitely felt the kind of pressure, like, is this just a hobby? Like, are you just interested in spending your time on these campaigns? Because, they'd go into these parent-teacher interviews and the teachers would be like, hey, Felix is not, like, doing his homework, and I hear it's because he's spending his weekends in downtown San Jose for Obama, right? So I think at first, like, there was a certain kind of resistance, and that's natural, right? If you're a parent, you want your kid to do well in school, to, remain focused. But I think as it became clearer and clearer to them that this was something that I was really passionate about, and I was also having some success in terms of building a sustainable career, they were more supportive. And, honestly, I think kind of genuine, like, sincere passion and sincere, like, belief in making the world a better place, that's something, like, whether you're Asian or not, you can understand. So, my advice would be, if this is something you're interested in pursuing, like, be candid with your parents about your intentions, about what inspires you. I think as in Asian families, there's often this sense that there's a cultural divide between us and our parents, and they don't really understand where we're coming from. But people understand sincerity, right? Parents do. So if you're able to show that you genuinely care and that your heart is in the right place, I think my parents supported me, and so will yours. Yeah.
What are, like, the most important skills to develop to be, like, an effective campaign manager or?
Yeah, I think being able to tell your story, right? Understanding, I see people who jump straight into, like, say, comms, right? People who jump straight into communications, and oftentimes they work in the press. Like, maybe they work for the Mercury News or something, and they were tired of that, so I'll do a career switch, I'll go work for some, like, a congressman or for whoever working on press stuff. But then I think, down the road, like, they're gonna be pigeonholed as press people. If you're just broadly interested in politics and fitting into a campaign wherever, you have to start with organizing. That's why my first section I covered was about grassroots organizing, because frankly that's where every campaign starts, and that's where every kind of sustainable political career, I think, starts, because that's where you interact with voters, you hear about how they think, like what concerns them, And whether whatever you move on to do, if you're trying to raise money, if you're trying to interact with the press, you've got to fundamentally understand what it is that moves people. I mean, we've seen this like these waves of political influence that come out of nowhere, like say like Bernie Sanders, suddenly a Democratic socialist, on the scene, like getting 30–40% of the vote, or say on the other side, like the Tea Party coming to the fore after President Obama's re-election. Like those are trends that were populist and people power. So if you're just kind of stuck in thinking about politics or policy, you don't see those coming. But if you're on the ground and hearing regular people's voices, maybe you can have some kind of foresight. Yeah.
So like, you're like, so being a campaign manager, like from all these like political TV shows, House of Cards, Sesame Street, Secretary, stuff like that, you see like politics as being like really like cutthroat.
Yeah.
Have you like has politics actually been that cutthroat, or is it just like marketing techniques to sell those? So like.
I think House of Cards is definitely a bridge too far. There's no like murder going on, to my knowledge. I don't know. Maybe Gilbert could tell you how he got on a city council or something. Did he kill anyone?
So I think that, so if you look at Madam Secretary, look at House of Cards, I mean, it's a little bit exaggerated for TV entertainment, but regarding the content of the strategy of, being human, you have a policy, personality, everything, yes there is, but if you look at local government, okay, being on a mayor, being on city council, things like, a dog park, things like, building a retail. They are so passionate that I may like I do support high density housing, okay, and my coalition of 3, okay, does support it, but then there's this one white guy who really gets on my nerves, and I really hate him, and because we hate each other, I'll keep my mouth shut. I'll let him do all the talking. I'll let him vote yes, and we get our thing passed. But if there's something that's not important to me, and the other 2 are anti-housing on another issue that I don't like, but I'll say, oh, you know what? I'm not sure what I really want, but why don't you talk more about it, and I'll let him talk for an hour, until the other 2 will cry uncle. And it's like, the next time you bug me, I'm gonna let the other side talk until you drive me crazy. And the city manager, who's the CEO, he's like, Gilbert, you're playing games. You really believe on this side? Why are you letting us stay for another hour? Because it's what we call revenge. Okay? So these are things that will not hurt the government. It will add more time, but it's my payback time. I'll give you another example. I'm the mayor and I love sister cities, and I need an airplane ticket to fly off to Rome or to fly off to Tokyo. And what they can do is that, you're wasting taxpayers' money. How can you fly out to Tokyo, visit your sister city, and what about, we could do for roads or library. So they can make it really uncomfortable on the budget and I'll say, okay, I'll buy my own airplane because I can afford the airplane ticket, go see the sister city, and it's about relationships and playing games. And that's kind of behind the scenes. I also want to say that if you want to do it the right way, you do it like Felix and do it grassroots. Another opportunity to talk to your parents. Let's say that you want to be a doctor, but you still want to give back to the community. So I would say, be that doctor, be that registered nurse, make the money, because most important is that you want to be successful. But we don't see folks who are the CEO of Valley Medical Center. We don't see a CEO of a private hospital. So what I'm saying is that make your money, study, and then break that glass ceiling and become that CEO of that hospital. Or work in high tech, become that engineer, and be that CEO for Google or Apple or that next high tech company. So what we really need is that folks working hard, earn your money, or be Felix and have supportive parents and go through that route. So there's many different routes that you can do. But it is personality, and it's all behind the scenes, and it's kind of like come to these classes and finally let the person tell you about these stupid stories.
And I'd say like specific TV shows, probably Veep and Parks and Rec are most accurate from day to day. Other questions? Yeah.
Is there any main key difference between campaigning for the state level or city level versus the Congress level?
State and city level, which is Congress. Yeah, I mean, in the types of issues that you're talking about, right? Like, I think, with let's say running a congressional race, the issues you're gonna be talking about are a little more detached. But you're like, okay, I'm gonna talk about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Like, those are programs that people feel like those decisions, those choices are made in Washington. And I would say, like, you also have to be, if you're running a congressional race, you're probably a little more mindful of the other political forces at play, right? Like, if you're running a congressional race, Mitch McConnell matters, and Nancy Pelosi matters. It matters who's at the top of the ticket, right? Like, last year, the Republicans lost a lot of seats here in California because Donald Trump was at the top of their ticket. It didn't matter, like, how nice they were, like, you know, how moderate or extreme they were, like, Donald Trump was at the top of their ticket, and there's not much they could do to break the unpopularity of the Republican Party in 2018. So, you know, I'd say there's kind of forces a bit out of control with congressional, but with local and state level races, they're a lot more like, hey, I'm concerned about the library, I'm concerned about the park over there, how do you feel about that, right? And you know, there's a kind of proximity there that I think is different. I mean, maybe Gilbert can speak more to that too. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, cool. Well, thanks a lot for your time.